spent all my summers as a youngster on St. Margaret's Bay in Nova Scotia. And we stayed at my aunt's house, my two cousins, my sister and I, my mother and my aunt, and my uncle would come in sometimes from Halifax, and my father would come up for 2 weeks from the States. The women worked very hard because there was no indoor plumbing. We had an outhouse, we had a wood stove, and we had a pump at the kitchen sink for water. All the water had to be heated. My mother, at the end of the day, would step outside and we were told not to bother her while she smoked a cigarette in peace. And even then I felt a little guilty because we didn't do anything. Kids, we just ran around. But the women always seemed to be working. Anyway, this is my mother on an evening in late summer. When the moon appears and a few wind-stricken barns stand out in the low-domed hills and shine with a light that is veiled and dust-filled and that floats upon the fields, my mother, with her hair in a bun, her face in shadow, and the smoke from her cigarette coiling close to the faint yellow sheen of her dress, stands near the house and watches the seepage of late light down through the sedges, the last gray islands of cloud taken from view, and the wind ruffling the moon's ash-colored coat on the black bay. Soon the house, with its shades drawn closed, will send small carpets of lamp glow into the haze, and the bay will begin its loud heaving, and the pines, frayed finials climbing the hill, will seem to graze the dim cinders of heaven, and my mother will stare into the star lanes, the endless tunnels of nothing, and as she gazes under the hour's spell, she will think how we yield each night to the soundless storms of decay that tear at the folding flesh, and she will not know why she is here or what she is prisoner of, if not the conditions of love that brought her to this. My mother will go indoors, and the fields, the bare stones, will drift in peace. Small creatures, the mouse and the swift, will sleep at opposite ends of the house. Only the cricket will be up, repeating its one shrill note, and the rotten boards of the porch, to the rotten boards of the porch, to the rusted screens, to the air, to the rimless dark, to the sea that keeps to itself. Why should my mother awake? The earth is not yet a garden about to be turned. The stars are not yet bells that ring at night for the lost. It is much too late. Now I'm moving up in time. I don't know how long I've been reading. Well, it's almost over. If I look at my watch from time to time, it doesn't mean I'm in a hurry. I just want to be sure you have time to ask me questions. I know my poems. I just don't know your questions, so I'm curious. The idea. For us too, there was a wish to possess something beyond the world we knew, beyond ourselves. something nevertheless in which we might see ourselves. And this desire came always in passing, in waning light, and in such cold that ice on the valley's lakes cracked and rolled, and blowing snow covered what earth we saw, and scenes from the past when they surfaced again looked not as they had, but ghostly and white, among false curves and hidden erasures, and never once did we feel we were close, until the night wind said, "Why do this, especially now? Go back to the place you belong." And there appeared, with its windows glowing, small, in the distance, in the frozen reaches, a cabin. And we stood before it, amazed at its being there, and would have gone forward and opened the door and stepped into the glow and warmed ourselves there, but that it was ours by not being ours and should remain empty. That was the idea. Everybody here knows the story of Orpheus, so I won't tell it to you. And there are many Orpheus poems. It seems to bring out the best in people. Certainly a great poem by Joy Graham, here next year. A very great one by Rilke, and many others. This is my contribution to the literature of Orpheus. Orpheus alone. It was an adventure much could be made of, a walk on the shores of the darkest known river, among the hooded, shoving crowds, by steaming rocks and rows of ruined huts half buried in the muck, then to the great court with its marble yard, whose emptiness gave him the creeps, and to sit there in the sunken silence of the place and speak of what he had lost, what he still possessed of his loss, and then pulling out all the stops, describing her eyes, her forehead, where the golden light of evening spread, the curve of her neck, the slope of her shoulders, everything, down to her thighs and calves, letting the words come, as if lifted from sleep, to drift upstream against the water's will, where all the condemned and pointless labor stunned by his voice's cadence would come to a halt, and even the crazed, disheveled furies for the first time would weep, and the soot-filled air would clear just enough for her, the lost bride, to step through the image of herself and be seen in the light. As everyone knows, this was the first great poem, which was followed by days of sitting around in the houses of friends with his head back, his eyes closed, trying to will her return, but finding only himself